Welcome everyone. League of Progressive Seniors and Souls to the Polls welcomes you to a session on what we can do to make sure that we have a successful election on August 13th and November 5th in this community. I was at Monday, Souls to the Polls sponsored Harry Dunn, who was the Capitol Police officer who underwent horror on January 6th, and he said on January 6th, I was not protecting democracy. I was protecting my life, I was protecting my fellow workers' lives, I was protecting the people that worked in that building. I was not protecting democracy. January 7th, I started to work to protect democracy.
I hear you.
So that's all of our job, right? Right. Okay, so there are a lot of people in this community who are doing everything they can about making sure that the vote gets out. And some of them will ask you for help, and some of them will ask you to let other people know what they're doing. So we have right now 4 speakers. We will have 5, we think maybe. Anita Johnson will be here from Souls to the Polls. So if you're anything like me, leading up to November, you might be a little worried, a little scared, a little, what in the world have we come to? But none of that is going to do any good. The only thing that's going to do good is all of us working for these elections. I'm going to introduce our speakers one by one. They each will have 10 minutes and 5 minutes for questions, okay? Now, our new Executive Director of the Milwaukee Election Commission, Paulina Gutierrez, will speak after our panel, and we'll give her more than 10 minutes if she wants it, okay? So, I would first like to introduce Angela Lang. Angela is the Executive Director of Black Leaders Organizing Communities. She is a graduate of Emerge Wisconsin. She was the political director of Our Future Wisconsin. She was an organizer for SEIU, and she is committed to organize and lead change in this community. So Angela, welcome.
Good morning. I have my handy timer because I know I can just go on and on and on. So thank you so much for having me. I know it's a beautiful day, a beautiful morning, and it's so encouraging to see folks still take time out of their day to come together, learn, and have community and dialogue with each other. So for folks that don't know, I'm going to kind of go all the way back to election night 2016, only briefly. We don't need to sit in that space too long. I think we all remember where we were, the feelings that we felt, and in the days and weeks afterwards, I started to see some narratives that I thought weren't particularly helpful. In some of those narratives, that there's literally someone that wagged their finger in my face and said, if you people would have just voted, we wouldn't be here. And I was like, that's not the right take. It's also offensive on many levels. But if that was the takeaway from 2016, we were doomed for 2020 if we didn't have the tough conversation about how Black voters didn't feel that they were engaged. Around that time, there was a national article that had come out from the Washington Post or the Times that actually interviewed some Black voters in Milwaukee, Black men at barbershops, and they said they didn't vote. They didn't feel that any candidate spoke to them, and quite literally no candidate spoke to them. No one knocked on their door. No one even bothered. And that was getting lost. If we didn't address that fact, then unfortunately, I thought we were going to be doomed to repeat the same situation in 2020. And so I can't just take that lying down, quite frankly. So I was lucky enough to be in a room and pull some national networks together to have a conversation of what does it look like to fill the hole of explicit C4 political Black organizing in the city of Milwaukee. And thank goodness there was an appetite. There was a lot of folks that were excited to try and support this effort and this random vision that I and a few others had. And we launched in November of 2017. We knocked our first door November 29th. If you've lived in Milwaukee, you can understand how probably bitter cold November 29th was. And here I was with a fresh new staff who, thank goodness, was believing in the vision and was dedicated and knocking doors. And the way we started is that we had 4 organizers knocking doors with one question: what does it look like for the Black community to thrive? And people were like, what do you mean? What do you really hear? What do you want me to sign? Hurry up so you can get out of my face. We've all been there, right? And we had to tell them, no, we actually want to listen. And people were so taken aback by it that they didn't even know how to answer the question. They're like, thrive, I'm just trying to survive day to day. And so we heard a whole range of issues. And after a couple years, we created what is now our block agenda, which is on our website, that is broken down into 10 different issue areas about the things that we've heard. And we created this agenda with the community, and that guides a lot of our work.
Could you say the name of your organization again, please?
Block, Black Leaders Organizing for Communities. We also, so we're kind of known for our political work. We do year-round civic engagement, and we are the only organization in the state of Wisconsin with a dedicated year-round program to the Black community. A lot of folks kind of pack up and go home. They don't have the resources to stay. Bare minimum, we try to keep at least 20 of what we call ambassadors on our team, even in an off election year, which, let's be honest, there's an election every 5 minutes, so there's no off years. Yeah. But that allows us to remain present, where people don't feel exploited, that people are just parachuting into the community a couple weeks or a couple months, trying to just extract as many votes as possible, packing up and going home, and feeling like people are left behind. So we're able to disrupt that and continuously have a presence on a year-round basis. We are trying to have big conversations. We are trying to, one, move people from non-voters to voters. Big conversation in and of itself. Not one that I can start even now and think I'll have success by November. This is why we are year-round and we continue to have those conversations. That also is not a linear conversation. Some people are like, yeah, okay, fine, you finally persuaded me to vote. And then they turn on the news and they're like, okay, well, this is dysfunctional. So there's a lot of times that just because you've made progress in that first conversation, you gotta keep it up. The second conversation is that we want people to feel educated about the offices that they're voting for. Do they understand the difference between a state senator and a US senator and how those offices directly impact their lives? If we're just going around saying, hey, vote for this person or vote for that person, that's not enough. People need to understand the urgency. And quite frankly, depending on the candidate, not every candidate is charismatic enough that just voting for that person is enough. You gotta understand what's at risk, you have to understand what's at stake and how that directly impacts your community. So after we get through the first 2 conversations, then we say, hey, these are the candidates that we're supporting. So we don't lead with the candidates, we're leading with that political education. What we're also doing is working with a lot of our coalition partners, including groups like Souls to the Polls, to make sure that we're shedding a light on voter suppression. I think folks have seen just some challenges with the Republican Party and the attacks on the Souls to the Polls ride program. As you know, Pastor Lewis says all the time, we don't take sides, we just give rides. And the fact that the Republican Party, through text messages, wanted to have a coordinated effort to disrupt that program that largely our community uses, the elderly, disabled folks use. To me, that's disgusting. And we wanted to make sure that we were standing and supporting folks like that too. We also have been very critical of Wisconsin's fake elector, Bob Spindell, who serves on the Wisconsin Election Commission. I don't understand how a person who brags about low voter turnout in the Black and brown community as if it's a badge of honor, and also served as a fake elector, is allowed to administer elections in our state. So we have been part of coalitions to be able to continue to hold him accountable and demand that he is removed, whether he steps down himself or he is removed by his colleagues. And I doubt that that's gonna happen, but that does not mean we don't continue to keep up the pressure. I'll also continue by saying some of the nonpartisan work we do, we wanna make sure that people feel whole. We're not just talking to them when it's just about voting. We see people as full people. So one of the things, and I've got some comments about it already, is we have a thing called a Wellness Wednesday text. And it started in 2020 in the height of the pandemic. If folks remember, the early days of the pandemic was right around the April election. And for the first time in my career, I was not leading conversations in GOTV about a candidate, and it felt strange. But we couldn't just say, hey, don't forget to vote on Tuesday. We were like, hey, we know it's a scary time. Do you need to be connected to resources? and we were making connections to folks. And sometimes those resources were like, hey, how do I vote? But we wanted to take the time to tell people we see you as not just votes. And we got a lot of traction on that. We had some social media posts where people screenshotted that and said, this is how you take care of people in GOTV. And because of that, we continue to do that. So every Wednesday, well, we're currently on vacation, so you're not gonna get one for a couple weeks. But every Wednesday, our team will send out just like a reminder, hey, this is so-and-so from Block, reminding you to center your mental health and your wellness. You know, go outside and catch some vitamin D and how that's good for your body. Our deputy director writes those every week. We also do things like a Wellness in the Park event that we just had on June 1st in Carver Park. Wasn't a political event, but we had things like food trucks, mental health resources. People were able to get vaccines and COVID testing. We had kids running around. It was rainy, but we were dancing in the rain. And we had a really great time. People were able to get wellness bags with wellness goodies and everything like that. And so we don't do this as kind of just like a ploy, but we want our community to know that we care about them as full people and not just as votes and commodities. And so when we do have political conversations and people are exhausted and they don't want to talk anymore, they often are like, I'll talk to you because I know you. I've continued to have conversations with you. And the last thing that I'll say is I am incredibly proud of our team of ambassadors. They are all from the community. And what is important is that we are often impacted in fighting for the same things that we're trying to organize our community around. And we're suffering the same grief, collective trauma, looking around saying what is happening in the world. But our team is still showing up through all of that. And I think sometimes there's this misconception that if you are an organizer, if you are a leader, you're somehow like this superhuman person and you're not also directly impacted. And our team shows up day in and day out, sometimes through very traumatizing times, to do this work. Their leadership development, they're putting in more hours than they're paid for. That's not me asking them to, but they're having conversations and they're saying, hey, yeah, I did just walk around my block because I had one conversation and next thing you know, we just started talking to our neighbors. And they have become resources in the community so much so that they continue to be seen as trusted messengers. And I think that's what makes us a little bit different and we're able to break through some of the other noise. So thank you.
Wow. She good? Can Matt ask the first question and you the second? I promised him.
What will you do after November?
Sleep is the first thing. And then I want folks to remember, I don't think the election ends after November because Wisconsin has a Supreme Court race in the spring. And I think we all know the importance of that Supreme Court race. So even when I'm talking to national donors and funders and folks that want to support me, they're like, what do you need? And I was like, I need money that I could use next year that I don't have to spend down through December, because ideally I would like to keep as many of my team as possible. We have about 50 or so folks, and I know a lot of folks will be scaling down and then rehiring. We want to make sure that we're consistent. So we'll take a break, we'll go to sleep for a couple weeks, and then we'll come back and we'll get involved in our endorsement process, but making sure that folks aren't forgetting just because we had November doesn't mean everything's over. We still need to pay attention to February and April.
Fantastic.
It's not so much a question, it's an endorsement. I follow you on my phone. And you're great. Your organization's great. You're great. And I just want to thank you for your good work.
Thank you. That means a lot.
And I send you money, not a lot, but I do send you
It's much appreciated, because that's the thing. It's through support like that, and this is not a fundraising pitch, but just so people know, is that I'm able to have a team on a year-round basis because we are able to prioritize our field program, and that's due to a lot of grant writing, but then also due to a lot of support like you all do.
You do good work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going. Angela, thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
terrific. Angela's on vacation today, and she has an appointment, so.
I can stay for a little bit. Yeah.
She's gonna stay for
I
a
was
little
like, I
bit,
am on a
but
time
when she
limit, but I'm.
sneaks out, it has nothing to do with you. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
that?
Okay, our next speaker was to have been Anita Johnson from Souls to the Polls. Our dear Anita has some eye problems and wouldn't make it, but she is our resident champion of how to vote, how to get other people to vote, all the papers you need, all the rigmarole. She can help anyone, so keep that in mind if you run across someone who has no idea what to do and they're stuck and doesn't know how to vote, Souls to the Polls, Anita Johnson.
The Souls to the Polls has coordinated rides to the polls for several years, and they desperately need people to drive people, pick them up, take them home, make sure everybody has access to a polling place. And so that's another thing that would be on, that's on the website, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Karen. All right, Judy, our next speaker is Judy Wynn. Judy is co-chair of the High School Voter Education and Registration Program from the League of Women Voters. She is a retired UWM Associate Professor preparing special ed teachers, and she's here now to prepare us for getting involved with the League of Women Voters. Welcome, Judy.
Anita promised she'd stay for 10 minutes so I can use her timer. Thank you so much. I'm just so honored to be sitting up here with people who do such wonderful work, and for your interest. Thank you so much for inviting us. As she said, I am the co-chair of the League's high school education and registration project. I could talk about that for 2 hours, but I also want to share all the other work we do around voter registration. I had to bring some notes because we have 9 teams, and I want to make sure that I give you information about all. Out in the hall there is a handout that has our logo at the top, and everything I talk about is in that handout, as well as our website and our chair's contact if you want anything. I also put a whole lot of information that we give out, materials like this, a card that we want people to keep with their phones, that talk about how to do My Vote. I'd love to go home with an empty bag, so please take everything you want out there, and if you want more of our materials to use in your activities, there's a number for you to call, and we'd be glad to share them. I know some of you are members of the League, but for those of you who aren't, we're really committed to getting people actively and with education involved in government. We do voter registration and voter education. We're very big on people having information about issues. We also do advocacy, and we also do a lot on education. So again, our website is there, and you'll find out more things about that. I want to go over, we have 9 teams, and we'd love you to help with the registration ones, member or non-member. And we have 6 that are focused on registration. So let me go through those quickly. The first one is the Comité, which is an outreach to 4 of the wards on the south side. And they do, they're hooked or linked with organizations on the south side. And however they want help with registration and education. I looked at what they did in the last month. They went to an open house at South Division High School and registered some people. They also went to one of the youth centers and gave them future voters stickers, and they go to whatever they are invited to. It's a very active group. You don't have to speak Spanish to be in it. It would help. And by the way, a lot of our materials are in Spanish and English. I tried to bring sort of both for you. Our second team is Community Outreach Partners and Higher Ed. And that group is linked with about 45 community organizations. And the organizations call them, request, will you come to this street fair, will you come to this? And we oblige and go and do information and registration there. There are 2 of those groups that we go to consistently. One is the DMV on Mill Road. What a great place, because people will have their IDs with them. And also MATC. In the downtown campus. I know many organizations, several organizations are involved with higher ed. We would like to expand to do that also. The high school project is, we are focused particularly on LPS schools. MPS in 2023 did a resolution, the school board did, that they want to increase students' access to voting and to registration. And they reached out to us to work with them, and we jumped on them. What a wonderful partnership. So we are in the Milwaukee schools and kind of hand in hand with them to make this resolution work. But we also are in all of Milwaukee County schools, not all of them, but we serve the Milwaukee County schools. And then wherever we've invited, we just did a large one in Oconomowoc, and we also do work in Waukesha. This year, this school year, we registered about over 900 kids, and 400 were in Milwaukee. I have to mention, in the high school program, we have, we're hand in hand with MPS, but also with the Bucks Foundation. We are thrilled. We just got a $10,000 grant from them. And we're going to use it in several ways, but they've also been wonderful partners. They have come to the high schools and do pep rallies. They're rim rockers, and Bango comes and does pep rallies in the school. We just called them the other day and like, I need 30 t-shirts, come down and get them. They've been absolutely wonderful partners, and it has, when we looked at the schools, looked at how many kids registered last year and how many this year, there's a big increase because of that. And I do have to show you, we have a co-branded t-shirt that a co-director made. Get in the game, register and vote, and there's that logo. And then back here is about student advocates. So we're very proud of those. Speaking of student advocates, our model in the high schools is to go in and really work with, hopefully, juniors, so we can have them for 2 years, and teach them about voting and about how to run a voter registration. So our ideal model is they run it and we help out. Sometimes we run it and they help out, but it's wonderful to have them involved. We were invited to South Milwaukee the other day, and we did presentations in all the social studies classes of the juniors. Okay, we also have 2 more teams that do registration. One is New Citizens, and that one is, it's really thrilling to be a part of that. We're sometimes in the courthouse and sometimes in the immigration services, and once they become citizens, they can register to vote. And it's just, and some of us get to go in and watch the ceremonies, which are just fabulous to see how the judges handle it. So we, I think we've done about 200 new citizens this year, and that's a wonderful one to be involved in. They all are. We also go to libraries. We go to the Milwaukee County main branches and then the side branches, and give them all information, and then the goal is to do 1 registration a year in the libraries. And then finally, we're also in the jails. We have jail-based voting, which is tricky because they don't always have ID with them. But right now we've gone to the, the Community Integration Center as well as the Milwaukee County Jail. So we want to expand the jail. Okay, that is our registration. We need help with all of these. We need volunteers. The way to volunteer is on our website, and on the handout has our website. On the website, we ask you to take a training in My Vote and how to use My Vote. 2 minutes, and how to help others with My Vote. And you can take that right online, or you can do it in person. After you do that, then on our volunteer page, you can see there are opportunities as they come up, and you just sign up for it on the web. The one exception is the high school, because you do the regular training, then we have another set of slides for you to look at. The high school's a little tricky because we do 17-year-olds. And then you will get notifications of help for that. Okay, we also have 3 teams that are on education. One is Vote 411, where it's a league all over the country where we do, we form partnerships with the clerks. And then we find out about the upcoming elections, we announce those, then we send questions to the candidates, and it's really nice because you can go on and see what did he say, what did she say to the same question. We also do candidate forums, so for people, 1 minute, so we don't sponsor them, but like I live in Shorewood, the Shorewood Women's Club sponsors them and then asks us and we run them. And then finally, we offer training for community and nonprofit organizations. If you have more than 10 people who want to be trained in online voting and registration, we offer that if you just contact us. We also have, and I have a sign-up sheet out front, we have weekly emails that give information about voting and voting issues. If you want to receive those, they're very nice. If you want to receive those, just sign up out there. Again, for all the registration teams, we need volunteers. On the handout, you'll have the website. I also have our chair. If you want materials, if you have any questions, feel free to contact Peg Schrader, our chair. And join us.
That person, okay.
Judy, you mentioned that you've got people working the south side of the schools. Are you doing anything with the central city schools? And it's a two-part question. Part two is, do you find the students prepared to vote?
We do work in all MPS. You know, the goal is for all MPS schools. So much of our work is in the central city schools. Yes and no, in terms of, you know, they have the excitement about voting. They want to do it. They need more facts. So, and so a big part is we have trainings about education. We have a lot of slideshows that the teachers can use. I also find MPS really dedicated to that, really dedicated to increasing not only their registration, but their understanding of what's going on. So a real passion in MPS for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question was a little bit tied to that. What about civic literacy, even civics? Do they get a part of that as part of your voter registration? Because it seems you need to know why you're voting and the complexity of issues and the complexity of offices for which people are voting. So how is that tied in?
We work carefully with Jenny Eckstein, who is the social studies chair in Milwaukee, over that. I'm not sure if they have civics classes. I think they do, or no, I think they used to, huh? But we do work with, the social studies teachers are often the people we work with. And when we go in to do training about how to run a registration, we do as much as we can about voting. I know in one school they asked me to come in and talk about the Wisconsin courts. You know, they said the students wouldn't know about that. So when we're invited, we do go in and do that, because you're right, there's a lot to know. Also, the importance of local elections. They need to know that it's not just the president, you know, the importance of local ones.
I'm just putting in a plug for the high school registration program because I volunteer with it, and it may sound daunting going into a high school if you haven't been in a high school in many years, but it's really fun. And the students, for the most part, are hilarious. And it's really, really fun and rewarding. What makes it the most successful in each school is if there's a champion in the school.
Yes.
If there's a teacher, in a social studies teacher or the resource room or whoever it is, the kids won't just show up on their own. They need that champion there who's driving them to get registered. But once they're in the room, they are such a joy and they are so funny. And it's not daunting at all. It's just really fun.
I'm a former teacher, so
Yeah.
it's wonderful. It's kind of nice to be able to go in and then leave.
Yes,
It's really nice to be back in the schools. And you're right. And then what also seems to help is if the kids really take responsibility.
Yeah.
If they do the posters, if they do
Yeah.
the announcements. So, you know,
Correct.
we really try to do that. But you're right. Sometimes, in one school I work with a parent coordinator. And then sometimes it's the college and career counselor, sometimes it's the social studies teacher. But you're right, you really need the support of the school. A lot of this, I was thinking, in all of these, it's building relationships.
Yeah.
You know, for the community organizations, for the libraries, it's really building relationships that, and once you have that relationship, it goes very well.
Thank you. Pat?
Yes, one of the things that I like that I heard from both of the first two speakers, and it happens to be something that I have a problem with, is people tend to talk to students and adults through the brain instead of through the heart. And I'm so glad to hear that people talking through the heart, because youth and people can understand that. The one other thing I'd like to say is, as we sit back here in this last row, we missed the slogan that you said was on the t-shirts. Could you read us that slogan again?
I was going to wear it today, but on the front, it's get in the game, register and vote, and the vote is, the O is the basketball. And then on the back is student voter advocate. Let me help you register to vote. So for a while, we were having the students who helped us, who were the helpers, would wear these. And then we also have pins for them and things like that, so.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Now
Yeah,
maybe-
I'll tell you, from the heart, the Bucks have helped a lot from the heart. They've helped a lot from the heart.
Okay, for those of you sitting who are thinking, I can't do that, I don't have time, I bet you got neighbors, I bet you got kids, I bet you got grandkids, I bet you got other people you know who say, I wish I could help, I don't know what's going on, I don't know how to help. You just heard a big plea for help, a very important help. So spread the word. That's why you're all here. Spread the word.
And take the handouts, please.
Please, take all the handouts. Oh, you guys are great. Okay, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you from Supermarket Legends, Terry Lauder. Terry is also a retired teacher, and she has volunteered for 8 years with Supermarket Legends, and she is now serving as the co-leader with its founder, Linnea Sundstrom. So please join me in welcoming Terry.
Well, thank you for having me here today. It's always good to be with a group of activists, so easy to talk to. So a little background, Linnea Sundstrom and Jim Brown founded Supermarket Legends in 2011. It's a grassroots, all volunteer, nonpartisan organization, and we have an interest in turning out the vote in the city of Milwaukee. So that's where we concentrate our efforts. So we provide election and voting information, we help voters register to vote, and we answer questions about voting. We're self-funded, so we raise funds mainly through our emails. We put out a plea when we need to start printing more flyers because the money is used mainly for printing. And we do have a GoFundMe page, and you just Google Supermarket Legends, and it's ongoing for the year. So we develop our own materials. Linnea Sundstrom is the designer. She's our guru, and she's a walking encyclopedia about elections. So if you need to know anything besides our election commission, you can consult Linnea. So she develops flyers. Now, we have input into it, but we're famous for this small one for Be Smart, Be Heard, Be Vote. And it lists all the election dates and the offices that are up for election. And it's packed with like a little bit of information. If you go to myvote.wisconsin.gov, what you can find on that website. Then on the back it has ID for voting in Wisconsin 2024. Does anybody know what it means to have a valid driver's license for ID? Do you know what that means? It has to be valid.
Unexpired.
Unexpired? Well, that's where some people think that, but in our little flyer, it does say if it should be unexpired or expired now for this next election after November 8th, 2022. So you can still use it for a period of 2 years. Also, your address does not have to be correct on it. And if you need to change the address, you've moved, you can go on the DMV site, change your address, and then it goes into the My Vote site, and then you re-register to vote. So every time you move, you have to re-register. So those are the kinds of information we give. We have one we used in between called 10 Things to Know About Voting in Wisconsin. Here's a trivia question. What's the difference in elections between even numbered years and odd number years for elections? Does anybody know that?
Partisanship.
Partisanship, that's part of it. Okay, so our number one, and she just put this as a trivia thing, is even numbered years have elections in February, April, August, and November. And then the odd years have elections in February and April. Now, there are sometimes special elections in there, but as far as our main elections, that's how we do it in Wisconsin. So that's kind of interesting, has a little more things, information on. And then we also, when there's early voting, we put out an early voting flyer, so listing where people can early vote, and we distribute these well in advance of early voting as soon as we find out from the Election Commission where the early voting sites are. So that's important to know. And this one we did in spring, also on the back had about the April elections, so some facts. It says, like your ballot will have two sections, one for nonpartisan local elections and one for the primary for U.S. President. So people are prepared for what's on the ballot. So we typically, these flyers, you can get them on our website. So our website is legendsvote.org, and you can download our flyers, and we update that regularly when we put new flyers, we develop new flyers. So we typically go where the voters go, and we find interacting as everybody else here with voters is really rewarding because they're really appreciative of getting the information. They usually say thank you, and sometimes they say thank you for what you're doing, so they're glad you're out there and seeing that you're promoting the vote. So the Supermarket Legends tries to fill its own niche and not overrun other organizations. So typically a lot of times we'll consult with the league. If they're going to be somewhere, we don't go there. But we pass out flyers at supermarkets. Now that's changed because we can't do a lot of supermarkets anymore because they're owned by big corporations, and they've said no. We used to go to Pick and Saves a lot. But we can go to the smaller local supermarkets. A lot of times like Gulfs will give us permission. They're happy to have us there. Now a public sidewalk fronts Sendix on Downer, so we don't have to get permission from them. We typically say, oh, we're going to be out there, but we don't have to have permission. And I'll just give you an interesting story. In 2020, in the fall, I was passing out literature with my granddaughter. She wanted to help me, so I thought Downer would be a good place because it's really busy with all the sidewalk traffic. And a woman came by and she said, well, thank you for the information, but she says, you know, I ordered an absentee ballot and I haven't gotten it yet, and I'm going to be leaving town in 2 days. Well, I don't know what to do. I said, well, you don't have to use that absentee ballot. I said, early voting has started, because that's when we were out there. And I said, just go to an early voting site. And I said, where do you live? And she looked at the early voting sites and then said, oh yeah, I'll do that. So she might not have voted, been able to vote, or been gone. So that was very helpful when you can talk to voters and give them that information. Right now we help students at UWM and now MyEd to register to vote. So we go there before elections. We register voters at the Chase and Teutonia DMVs. Now that is a very fruitful activity. Now I can say in 2022, we have these statistics. We helped register 3,100 voters. Wow. This is in 1 year, and made 6,000 contacts. Now contacts means you give out a flyer, at least they get information about the elections. So this effort has now morphed into what we call it the Milwaukee Voter Project. It has its own website. So if you're interested in helping with that, you know, in a lot of countries you're automatically registered to vote. It's so difficult in this country. The fact that we have to go there and do this is ridiculous. They should be able to, when they get a new license, just automatically register to vote. Doesn't happen here. So that's why we need all our organizations out there. We deliver election information to 120 social service agencies, so people volunteer to go to these sites and bring our flyers. And then these agencies distribute them to their own clients. So depending on a given election, we deliver 17,000 to 18,000 sets of flyers. We now have volunteers who adopt a site. So they'll just go to that site and follow up and say, did you get enough flyers? Do you need more flyers? Do you want us to come and help do a registration event? Things like that. So we always need people to adopt the site. So if you already volunteer at a food pantry, you could just be a contact for Supermarket Legends. We exhibit at events, like in April, we were at the Milwaukee Health Summit, if we find out about them. We were at a couple back-to-school events last fall. Another interesting activity we do is staff early voting sites. Now, Midtown now is not, it's not at Midtown exactly. It's
Capitol Drive.
Capitol
Center.
Drive Voting Center, which is an excellent new building for early voting. And typically, a lot of people vote early. They see, oh, vote here, so they vote every year, and they don't know that they actually have an assigned polling place. Now, sometimes they forget to maybe go early, and election day comes, I have 2 minutes. Oh my gosh. Okay, all right, I'm gonna get going. So we helped approximately in 2020, 800 voters at Midtown and other sites who show up thinking they can vote on election day. And we say, you can't vote here, and we direct them where to go. So we have our phones, we go to myvote.wisconsin where we tell them to go, put in their address, and then they're very grateful, and it's so exciting when they go, oh yes, I want to do it. And we've caught people a half hour before the polls close coming to the site, so they get there in time too. Also, we are now expanding our outreach to senior centers, neighborhood associations. We need volunteers to work from home to do scheduling, so if you want to help with that. And how much we can do, of course, only depends, like all our organizations, on volunteers. We need you. You can sign up. If you want to be on our email list, I have this, you can sign up. I have a business card if you wanted to contact us. We have our website, you can sign up there. And I was so happy to see the league had some of our flyers out there, so you can take some of those. I have more in my bag, and I have some of these 10 things if you need them. So thanks again for the invitation to speak to you today.
Thank you. This is pretty exciting. Imagine the difference that these 3 organizations have made. You heard real numbers of people being helped. What are you coming up here for? We're not talking about Bernie now.
I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, y'all, here's a little secret. Bernie's coming here Thursday at 10 o'clock. Bernie Sanders, you're all invited to brunch with Bernie. We'll talk about that later. Karen has flyers. Aren't we? The League of Progressive Seniors and Souls to the Polls bringing you Bernie. Pretty good. Could somebody say who's Bernie? Question.
Would you ask somebody to talk about the constitutional amendments on the ballot?
I'm not.
Sure. I can talk a
Okay,
little bit about it.
Paulina will when she talks, okay? Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's a very, maybe a simple question, but when Supermarket Legends was founded, what went into the name? I've never really
That's
understood
interesting.
that.
So the idea was to go where the voters go, and so they just decided to go into supermarkets were the great places to go. And then it was Linnea started thinking of the name, and so she said supermarkets, we go to supermarkets, and then Legends, she heard that name Legends from somewhere, and then put it together. So I know it's a crazy name, and we're not as well known as the other organizations,
But all these people are gonna be talking about you now.
yeah, now they know who we are. Yeah.
Another question.
So you mentioned that because of corporate ownership, you can't leaflet in front of supermarkets. What about like these malls, like Pick and Save down the street is part of the parking lot is a part of a huge mall. Can you
Well, see, the
leaflet-
mall is privately owned, so
So
we,
you can't-
yeah, we could try to get permission, but that's difficult too. They typically don't give permission, yeah. It's really hard, and it was very fruitful, like I went to the Pick and Save on 35th Street, and I just met so many voters who were so grateful to get the information, but we just can't go there anymore.
There's another job for you all called ownership of Kroger and say we're not happy.
Yeah.
Follow-up question, most supermarkets allow you to have, they have little places inside where you can put
Yeah,
small
we
leaflets
can
and
check on that too.
you have or you will.
Yeah. You know, we did have that permission for the one on Good Hope, and then we tried again and no. So the flyers weren't there when we checked one time, so I think they just get removed.
That's
Yeah,
too bad.
it's really hard. Sendix is, like I said, the one in Downer is, we typically go in the city, and that's on a public sidewalk. Now, Gulfs will let us go, and so El Rey, we can get permission a lot of times from El Rey to go in front of their supermarkets. Pete's Fruit Market, we can, a lot of times they'll give us permission. So
Great.
more the locally owned ones. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Terry.
Thank you.
You want me to do the constitutional amendment thing first?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm pulling up the League of Women Voters website, so bear with me. So there's two, they're very confusing, so I don't have
These
all
are
of
the constitutional amendments.
Yeah, the language. Says, so I remember one of them being around aid and how when there's like federal aid dollars that come in, it limits the governor's authority to help allocate some of that aid, and that would go to the legislature, which is a problem for lots of reasons. So they're asking folks to vote no, and they have a whole toolkit. The first question is delegation of appropriation power. Shall section 35(1) of Article 4 of the Constitution be created to provide that legislature may not delegate its sole power to determine how money shall be appropriated? Question 2, allocation of federal monies. Shall section 5(2) Article 4 of the Constitution be created to prohibit the governor from allocating federal monies the governor accepts on behalf of the state without the approval of the legislature by joint resolution or as provided by legislative rule? And then it goes on about like, this is what a yes vote means, this is what a no vote means. So I just Googled League of Women Voters, Wisconsin constitutional amendments and found it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
Okay, one more.
So yesterday, we had Margot Kirshner from Wisconsin Justice Initiative speak to residents at St. Rita Square. She spoke primarily on the two constitutional amendments. She gave a history of how this has all happened in the last almost 200 years of Wisconsin history. And she was very clear that the First Amendment really is a return to a previous writing of the Constitution up to 1930s, somewhere late 1930s, when it was changed to the way it is today. And they could go back by simply changing the statute, but instead they don't want to do that. They want a constitutional amendment, which makes it harder. And yes, the end result is vote no.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Look who run. This is the famous Anita Johnson we were all talking about before. We told everything you do, so you have absolutely nothing to do here. Tell the people a good story. No. Anita Johnson is our resident expert in Milwaukee on how to vote, how to get the credentials to vote, how to overcome all of the stumbling blocks, etc., and how to help you help other people to do it. Anita is a magnificent representative of Souls to the Polls and will tell you what she does and how you can help.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I apologize for being late. I rubbed my eye and damaged it, so it's the blood vessels is a bright red. And I just went to the doctors this morning just to make sure that it wasn't infectious. But you know how women are. I am not going to let you see this red eye. And I will be getting a patch to wear later. Okay, I am the outreach and education activist, director, whatever you want to call me, for Souls to the Polls. I have been doing this work for over 20 years, and obviously I love it because I actually should be retired.
Technically are.
And technically I am, because I get a chance to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Souls to the Polls is a nonprofit organization. And our focus is really on voting rights. And we are dedicated to helping everyone to learn how to vote. We want to make it easier for people when they go to the polls so they know what to do when they go to the polls to vote. And that includes voter registration, that also includes a photo ID. Photo ID is a huge problem, and you might not think it's such a big thing, but in the poor communities, in the Black and brown communities, photo ID is a huge problem because people lose their social security numbers, they lose their birth certificates, they lose their IDs, and they don't know what to do. So what we do is advise them on what to do so they feel more comfortable when they go to the DMV. I have walked people to the DMV and assisted them in getting a photo ID so it's easier for them, because they don't know if they're new to Wisconsin and they want to vote, that they can go to the DMV and get a photo ID for free. But you have to say these things to the clerk. I need an ID so I can vote. If they don't have all their documentation, a lot of people are afraid to go because they feel like nobody at the DMV is going to help them because they don't have a birth certificate, and they can go through the IDPP process. But these are things that we educate the public on so people will know what to do when they go to the DMV. We even explain the process when you go to vote. And people don't know that when you go in to vote, they ask for your name and your address. This proves that you are a registered voter. Then they ask to see your ID. They look at your face and they look at your signature, and that's it. They're not supposed to compare your address to the address for as you have registered to vote, because guess what? You can change your address online. And that's another big problem that we try to get people to know, that you need to update your address. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but you need to take this stuff out to your communities and let people know these are the things that we need to do. I mean, many of you haven't moved in years, that's fine. But I talked to people and I was like, have you changed your address lately? No. Well, when did you move? 5 years ago. 5 years. You need to change your address. This is a critical election, and people are going to be watching. I am a nonpartisan person through and through, but they've got people out there that are poll workers who are just ready to pounce on us. So everything has to be perfect when people go to vote. We look for volunteers a lot. And what we really need are people who are willing to drive voters to the polls. Norma runs a very robust organization for people who want to drive people to the polls. She trains, she does a lot. So we do need, everybody doesn't like to do that, but we do need people who are willing to take people to the polls on election day. Souls to the Polls is no longer Milwaukee. Souls to the Polls is Souls to the Polls, Wisconsin. We have gone up to Green Bay and even encouraged them to have voting on Sunday. We are very proud of our Vote on Sunday efforts because we have churches and talk to the pastors, and these churches come to vote on Sunday. They bring their whole congregation to early vote, and that is our Vote Sunday. I have ambassadors that are working in churches, and anybody can do this. And they set up on Sundays, and I say you can do it the first Sunday, or you can do it the first and third Sunday. But let people know that there's somebody there who can help them register to vote, who can advise them on updating their information, who can tell them where their polling site is. You know, all you have to do is go to www.myvote.wi.gov and, you know, get this information. It's so simple to do. So in a nutshell, that's what Souls to the Polls do. But I'm very proud, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do that. We just have created 100 Women on the Move.
Yeah.
People come to me every year. Thank you. We're very, very proud of that. People come to me all the time, I want to volunteer, I want to do this, and I want to do that. Along with Brenda and Rhonda, we have created 100 Women on the Move. We have 120 women that have signed up to be part of this movement, and we have already set up a schedule from May all the way to November, and we've slotted in what people can do. And sometimes people come to me and they say, well, can I volunteer to do this? And I was like, I don't need you right now. I have a program. And I kind of set things to do. And it doesn't mean that I don't want you to volunteer. I don't need you at that time. And sometimes people, you don't need me?
Right.
Well, no, I don't. But if you join 100 Women on the Move, we have a program for volunteers, and we can slot you in when we have the opportunities to come up. I thank you so much for your attention.
Matt has a question for you. Angela leaving?
Yes.
Angela, thank you.
Thank you.
Anita, you've also done some training for people who are formerly incarcerated. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, but we all know if a person is off paper, they're not reporting to their supervisor, most cases they've paid up their fines and stuff like that, they can register to vote. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. If they lost a paper that says they're off paper, they can call the Election Commission because they have a list of these people. As long as they're off paper, they can register to vote, and they can vote. If there's any other questions about that.
Thank you.
I do train people on how to register people to vote, how to help people update their information, the ambassadors, anything else. Are there any more questions of me? And you have such experts up here that you can also ask questions to. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Well, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Paulina Gutierrez. Paulina is our newly appointed Executive Director of the Milwaukee Election Commission. She served as Deputy Director since early 2023. Even though she looks a little young, she's a lifelong public servant. She recently worked for the Department of Corrections as their legislative advisor and played a key role in helping to reform and rebuild our youth prison system. Ongoing, she has lots of previous service to the city of Milwaukee. She worked for the health department as the director of Mayors Against Gun Violence, or the regional co-director. She was the legislative fiscal manager for Intergovernmental Relations Division and the Emergency Communications and Policy Director for the Fire and Police Commission. Paulina is a graduate of Alverno, and, oh yes. More important to me, Paulina is the daughter of a former co-worker and a dear friend, Esperanza Gutierrez, who is so proud that all of her buttons have punched off and always has been of this young woman. So help me in welcoming her and thanking her for accepting this position.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Again, Paulina Gutierrez. Was appointed last week into my position. Happy to be here, very excited. Just a quick background, I know she provided some of the details of my career. I have about 17 years in public service. I started as an organizer. I grew up, born and raised here in the city of Milwaukee. Both of my parents are immigrants. My mom came here from Mexico City. My dad came here from Indonesia, and somehow they decided Wisconsin was the choice. Because I definitely don't like the cold. However, I do love brats and cheese, so I do belong. And it's so interesting because my daughter and my kids love the cold, so apparently it skips a generation. I have 4 kids. I am an MPS graduate. My kids are also MPS students. My youngest now is just finished off at Spanish immersion, headed off to middle school now. Pray for me. Last one left. So yeah, I started off at Department of Corrections, have been working always adjacent and alongside public safety, law enforcement type roles. So moved into elections when Mayor Johnson, I had the honor of knowing him when he was an organizer. That's how we met. And so when he was elected, I said, hey, if you've got a spot for me, I'd love to come back, because I was commuting to Madison for 4 years. And after the governor was reelected, I just said, I can't keep doing it. So very excited and honored obviously to be in this position. So I just wanted to provide just some information. I took notes on my phone. I have a small but mighty staff of 11 full-time employees at the Election Commission. We employ over 3,500 people though during election season. And the reality is elections aren't run by just one person, right? It's everybody. And most of it is, people like you who work the polls. I mean, you guys are the most amazing part of our job. And I'm so honored that I get to help lead that effort here in Milwaukee. Let's see, so a couple of goals for this year. We have a goal of recruiting 1,300 new poll workers this election season. Wow. And we're feeling really good about it though. I mean, the one exciting thing, we want you to vote in every election, but as you know, in November, everybody wants to vote and everybody wants to work. So we are doing a poll worker recruitment plan. Out of the 11 staff that I have, we work really hard to have all of them at least attend 5 community events this season for poll worker recruitment and obviously voter registration. One of the things I wanted to talk about too, so grateful for the groups here who help out and spread the word, because obviously we're a small but mighty team. I think the one thing I ask is that if you are part of a group that is getting ready to kick off some big voter registration campaign or anything, we would appreciate a call and a heads up. My staff right now, we have been processing over 6,000 registrations that have come in. Some of them have not been so great in terms of quality. And so we want to help you help us. So if you are planning big campaigns like that, please give us a call and we'll train you and give you the information you need. I know a lot of people say, well, we get the process started and you can finish it. But the reality is I end up having to take, I've had to hire 10 extra staff, and now I have 13 people in my office just processing paperwork when they could be out there actually helping voter registration, right? So the more quality information that you get and can spread, that helps us keep the process moving smoothly. So the other thing, along with the 1,300 new poll workers, we're also working to assess and train up to 50 of our current election workers to become part of our scale-up team. So as I'm sure you're aware, we have election day, but there's all this stuff that happens before and all this stuff that happens after. And so we want to have a group of 50 well-trained staff that know WISP vote, that know voter registration, can answer calls, and just become like our team of experts. And so if you are a poll worker that, I can dedicate more time to elections before and after, please give us a call. We would love to get you on that list. A couple other things that we are focused on is moving towards the grassroots level. So I went to a couple community events last night, and getting my staff out there to go to community events, I think it helps kind of remind us who we are and why we do the things that we do. I will say, I remember when I interviewed for the job, I had asked about, what is it like, having heard about the things that happened in 2020. And our community here in Milwaukee, everybody's been really, for the most part, everyone here is really great to my poll workers. And so if you find out if you are a poll worker, or you have a friend or a neighbor that's a poll worker, you spread that love and share your gratitude, because I think that helps. Because we're getting ready to experience a pretty tough year. And so whatever that positive reinforcement, those accolades that our workers get, I continue to share that because I think it really does help. And again, like I said, if you are doing any kind of campaigning in terms of voter registration or election stuff, please give us a call. If you make flyers for stuff, send it over and we'll confirm the information. I know we talk about the website, getting you guys the information, but there is only 11 of us and only 2 that know how to use that horrible website coding language. And so we do the best we can to get the information up there, but I don't know if you know, but we're currently in a special election right now.
Yeah.
So because we're in the special election, I can't really put up the early voting sites for August because we have to finish through our special election here in July. But we'll be putting it up shortly. And interestingly, because of the way the special election lined up, July 30th is a special election for State Senate District 4, which is Lena Taylor's former seat. That is also the first day of early voting for the August primary. So, and we don't want to prohibit or we don't want obstacles to stop voting. I want to make it accessible to everyone. So we are literally going to have an election day on July 30th at the Senate District 4, State Senate District 4, and also hold early voting for August primary. So we are running basically 3 elections simultaneously right now. So the patience that you can provide to us, we appreciate. Like I said, we're a small team, but if you need to check and make sure, is this right, call us. We're your experts, okay? Because that's why we're here. A couple other things that we're doing too is, I don't know if you noticed, but if you did, I would love to hear it. Increasing signage for early voting. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have now these 6-foot signs that talk about early voting, and our goal is for every early voting cycle, we are going to put those out every cycle. And so I think those have been really helpful. A couple other places that you are maybe interested is it's called the Special Voting Deputy Program. So this is where we vote inside of long-term care facilities. We bring the voting to individuals in those facilities. So back before 2020, I think we had about 600 voters in the SVD program, but now we're only at about 282. So if you have a facility or you know people that live in long-term care facilities that you think might qualify, please call us and let us know, because we would love to expand that program. There's also a hospitalized elector voter program, so that if you find yourself in the hospital during an election, give us a call and we can get you a ballot so that doesn't stop you from voting. So again, there's a lot more programs out there to help people vote in extenuating circumstances. Give us a call and we'll see what we can do for you, okay? The other place that I always think is, if all of these things you're not able to do, vote observing too is also a great thing to do. My experience has been that when I have observers from both parties, they tend to behave better. But when I get observers from only one party, they start to feel they can be a little obnoxious. So if I get voters from both parties, it'd be great. And I understand that this is the city of Milwaukee. We're, typically a liberal city, but you have a right to observe the process. We are transparent and would love to have you there as observers as well. And you can observe at the polling locations or at central count, and it's one of those things, like, if you have the opportunity, I say you should do it, because you can really see how elections work. It's an amazing process of bipartisan humanity coming together to support democracy. So it's a great opportunity if you are able to. And like I said, with voter registration, the more that we can teach you and train you, along with some of our long-term groups that have been doing this for a while, the better, because it's better to try to get that information correct the first time rather than us having to catch up, because of our tiny little team, it slows us down in the ability to do more for our community. So that's basically all I had for now, but if you guys have questions, I'm happy to take them.
Do you have a business card or anything?
Not yet, but I will soon. Yeah.
Okay.
But you can call, my office, 286-VOTE is our number. Or email voterinfo@milwaukee.gov is a way, that is answered by real people. We don't have any cool AI stuff.
I would just like to congratulate you,
Thank you.
on the early vote site you had for
Juneteenth Day.
Juneteenth Day.
Yeah.
This has never happened before, and it was very, very important to my community that we were able to celebrate Juneteenth by voting on Juneteenth Day. Thank you very much.
We were planning that special election, and we were obviously, I remember thinking, oh my God, we have a special election. Oh my God, we have a special election. Oh my God, we have a special election. But then when we saw the timing for early voting, we're like, oh my God, this lands right on Juneteenth Day. And technically, Clinton Rose Senior Center is usually closed on Juneteenth Day because it's a holiday. But the county was super great in working with us, and we were able to open, and we had early voting at Juneteenth Day Festival, which was cool. It wasn't as well attended as we hoped, but that's one of the things we want to do, is do more of that voter accessibility and bringing voting to the people where we can.
Thank you. Matt first, and then Karen.
Has there been a change in the way poll workers are provided security from the last election to now?
Yeah, so we have in the last few months, we have been enhancing our security where we can. I obviously won't go into detail with that, but we also are planning for enhanced training, safety and security, see something, say something, and de-escalation for our poll workers. So just if you are a poll worker, keep an eye out for that. It'll probably be likely sometime at the end of September.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Back there.
Are we gonna have drop boxes this year?
I don't know. We are waiting with bated breath from the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court heard the arguments for that drop box, I think in like May. My understanding is it usually takes them 30 to 60 days to provide guidance. So we're not sure yet. We have done a pretty high level audit of our boxes. We do have a contract with a company so that like if they do come back, we will be ready to get them ready and then have to work out the details of like the hours and timing. So if they do come back, we'll be ready. But right now we don't.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, quick unsolicited endorsement. My wife Alana comes from a long line of poll workers for her family up in Marathon. And she's done it, of course, during certain low turnout elections, the day goes a little slow, but she says the people are nice and everyone's happy to be there, and it's really a great experience.
It really is. I love our poll workers. The magic that they have with de-escalation and the patience they have with voters is kind of amazing. Like I think people should be writing books if you've been an election worker on those life self-help books on how to deal with difficult people because it's pretty amazing. I have learned so much from so many of my poll workers, and I will tell you, I remember even with Claire when I would talk to her, I felt like, oh, that's so condescending to talk to someone that way, but like no, just. I am a fast talker, so it's talk slow, take a deep breath, and it really does help. And also just stating the obvious seems condescending to me, but like that really does help because people just want to know that everything's okay and they just want you to answer their questions. But poll workers are amazing.
It was one of her first missions when she retired, was to sign up for the poll.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
fabulous.
Cool.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate, as a poll worker, it really does help to have observers from both sides there. Because they can be really intimidating on one side, so.
Yeah, I've learned that quickly.
Reinforce
So,
that, yeah.
yes, for sure. And I think sometimes certain parties take for granted what kind of communities they work in. So it's like, no, you should come to and observe. So thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Back there?
Just a quick question. You mentioned a lot of like opportunities or volunteer programs like to the hospital or the nursing home. But is there a spot where you go if you want to volunteer for those, like the other places?
Oh, right, yeah. So we have our website. Thank you for the actual details on how to do things. We have a new system called Poll Chief, and it's on our website. And you can do it on your phone. You just go in and you can apply. So the training sessions for the August and November election are just getting finalized. I will point out, and I'm sorry that I'm bringing this up now, but the site is currently down today because we're doing upgrades. It'll be available on Monday. So don't tell anyone until Monday to sign in. I just realized that now. So the Poll Chief account is where you would go in and say that you're interested in working. You fill out that information, someone replies, and then you have to do some of that required paperwork for payment. Or if you want to volunteer, you let us know, and then we'll make sure that your work is noted as volunteer rather than paid. And then once you're all set with all that paperwork, then you get the notice for training, you complete your training, and then you can work elections, right? And then typically what we want to do for like our scale-up team that I was talking about, that do pre and post, we are really targeting like chief inspectors and those that have actually worked more than one election, because now you're a little more grizzled, and then we can bring you in to do some of that auditing work, that like attention to detail work that we need. So, yes, ma'am.
I work at the polls in the city. I am a city resident, but I've had people ask me if you have to be a city resident to work in the city of Milwaukee, and also about Central Count, if you have to be a city resident.
For Central Count, you do have to be a city resident to touch the ballot, but you don't have to be a city resident to work the polls. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Anyone in the county?
Yeah, county.
Are you, as a general rule, are you concerned with what Trump said last week about Milwaukee and the RNC and people who are coming into this town that don't know anything about Milwaukee, the reality and the not reality?
Well, I will say one of the things, so I obviously I worked for Mayor Barrett for many years, and then now work for Mayor Johnson, and then worked for the Governor Evers administration. And so I've worked in government many, many years, and was like, I'm a super political nerd, and would like read all these details. And then I remember coming into elections, and I would talk to everybody inside elections, like, we don't care. And I've gotten to the point now where like, oh my God, people are talking about elections, I don't know. I'm just administering the election, which is so funny. So I went from being like this, sucking in all this political pundit information, to now I'm like, nope, I just really want to worry about elections. So I don't read that kind of stuff. I think I would probably not sleep at night. I already have so many other details in my mind about recruiting 1,300 workers and counting thousands of ballots. But I will say, one of the things is that's why having observers from both parties coming to all of our administration and transparency is so important. I will say also that having a good relationship with both parties is so important, and so I feel really lucky that like our board of commissioners, both of the Democrat and Republicans, work really well together. One of the things we did, because I think central count becomes the big focus, is we established last year, the board of commissioners approved a pretty robust chain of custody process. So it's actually kind of fun to watch. I have this big lockbox that I pull out and I show it and I let people touch it before we put the sticks in, and we have it in a very public area. We have public announcements throughout the session. So like I have transparency, I have nothing to hide, and so I am confident I have truth and facts on my side, and that's what I will always lean on. So.
Great answer.
That same question for the observer thing, is that something you apply for, and where would you look at that? And, can independent voters do it? I thought
yes, any member of the public. So basically what you do is you come in and you say, I'd like to be an observer. You have to sign in and show an ID. You typically should not be wearing any political gear, no hats. And sometimes people get a little too close to comfort, but yeah, just, and really you're there to watch. I will say my workers we are very, very busy, and we have a very important job to do. And once in a while, I'll get some observer who just thinks that I am like their personal advisor and ask all these questions. But if you're a chief, if you're able to take that time to ask chiefs, or if the chiefs have time to answer questions, which is usually, that's why if you want to observe this special election. It's a small election, then usually the chiefs have more time to answer questions, and then I will happily answer questions at Central Count if I have the time, right? But sometimes it gets a little busy. But yeah, any member of the public can come and observe the process. You just sign in and have an ID. I mean, if you have a party, I would recommend, if you're attached to a party, to do it that way too, because then sometimes the parties offer training as well. We don't necessarily offer training, but there is, like, on the Wisconsin Elections Commission website, I think there's information about how observing works and all that, so that would be helpful. And we just ask, you follow the rules and you let our workers work really hard, and you get to watch the process, democracy in action, so.
Okay, thank you. North Shore, you have an announcement?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah.
Yes, Robert De Niro would say.
I'm looking at you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Schmitz with Grassroots North Shore. I want to talk to you about another way to help, for you to help volunteer for the election. There's two things that, as progressives, we can't get into. The idea that Trump made America great. The second thing is getting into large apartment buildings and condos. So we've come up with a program that will enable us to kind of crack into those places where there's lots of votes. I mean, down here in the city of Milwaukee, or this 53202 zip code, half the people who live here live in large apartment buildings. So, it's not just downtown, but Tulsa, Shorewood, and other suburbs also have large apartment buildings as well, also inaccessible. The thing about these places is they tend to be progressive voters. You won't find too many Republicans in apartment buildings. They tend to be younger, just the people we want to meet. So here's how the program works. And it's rather simple. From the vote builder list, we know who the strong Democrats are within these buildings, and so we're going to contact them and invite them to consider coming into the program. So that's how we're going to find people within the buildings. They will then go through their building, working off the vote builder list, to contact people to make sure they're voting, to answer any questions, and to get people knowledgeable about the election. So along with what we call building captains, because in a sense this is like the concept of a ward captain, only this is a vertical situation, of course. We also will need people to do phone recruiting and also to supervise the building captains to make sure that their questions are answered, whatever. The building captains, by the way, will be trained in being able to engage people and to approach their neighbors. So that is pretty well it. Yeah, thanks for the cut. So
Thank you. So another
wait. So I passed out cards. If you're
Okay.
interested, see me afterwards, and I'll fill you in. You can contact me off the card, and I would love to have your participation. If you can make it down here, you can do this job. Thank you.
Amen, thank you. 1 second before Bernie, I'd like to introduce to you Luann Gertz. Luann is a candidate for the State Assembly.
Yep.
Kind of a favorite of the League of Progressive Seniors. So Luann.
Thank you. I'm a 30-year member of the League of Women Voters who helped shape who I am today. And I'm happy to get that tip about those apartment complexes, so thank you for all of that. But I'm just so happy to be one of you and running for us. And who can turn away this space at the doors, right? And then I have a friend, Michelle, who showed up. She's 80 years old. She says, I can't sit back, I gotta do something, right? So I said, well, why don't, she didn't have this in mind. I said, why don't you come on doors with me? And she did, and we have a lot of fun. So I'm here to...
Where are you running?
I'm running in the 61st Assembly District, which is Hales Corners, all of Greendale this time, Greenfield, and a little bit of Milwaukee, which is great, and a little bit of Franklin. I ran last time, and it was a 7-point swing, and I made it a 2-point swing, so, and now I'm going to new
Tell them who you're running
It's
against.
even closer, and I am hoping to send Bob Donovan packing.
And she needs your help.
Volunteers, money.
She needs volunteers, she needs money, and we need to stop him once and for all.
Amen. She is talented to the majority.
Right. This is one of the closest, it is the closest seat in the state, being 50.8R. We can flip the whole assembly. So I have 5 events next week, 3 of them are private. One is in Milwaukee, if you're interested, because I'm bringing in a school board member and we're gonna talk about not breaking up MPS and what we really can do to help our kids.
Yay.
That's the kind of thing I do. Thank you.
Our next meeting is the 3rd Friday in July. We're going to be talking about Project 2025, something that should scare you all to the inside of every progressive bone in your body. But this Thursday, we're going to see you all because we are having brunch with Bernie Sanders. Woo! Is that good? Yeah, I think so. And it's going to be right here. These doors will be open, so we'll have a lot more seats. We'll have brunch out in the hallway. Who cares about brunch? We all get to meet Bernie Sanders. And we got to hear why he is supporting Joe Biden. Very simply. What an opportunity, huh? So thank you all very much. We hope to see